Hello, welcome. We are back live with the podcast. I'm Josh. To my, I guess, what is that, left on your screen? Or to my left is Owen Wilson, who's substituting for Devin since he's lame, is at the beach with his wife. Isaiah is also here running a lot of our tech stuff. And then there's Ben, as always. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
And then there's Ben, as always. It was just an interesting way to word that, but I'll take it.
You're
I mean, I'll take
faithful.
it.
You're always here.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, that's nicer. It sounded more like that dude who always shows up to the party, yet no one remembers texting him to come. And so, and then there's Ben, as always.
Well, because some people don't always show up. Just saying. In all seriousness, though, Dev and Megs are gonna have a great time. Love you guys, okay?
Devin, Megs, if y'all are in the comments, you should say hi.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, let's see here. What do we got on the agenda today? Oh, we've got to start with our movie review.
Yes.
So if you guys remember, last week we were supposed to review the movie Stalker, but I was actually out of town on my anniversary, so we pre-recorded the episode, which meant we didn't have enough time to watch it. Long story short, we're going to talk about the movie Stalker. Josh, you take it from here.
Yeah, so this is part of a segment that we're going to do every now and then, where I suggest a movie that's a little more on the challenging side, something that can really get a good, thoughtful discussion going. And
a little on the challenging side?
A little on the challenging side, yes. So, and we can get into your comments on it later. But this movie is Stalker. It is a Russian movie made by the acclaimed director Andrei Tarkovsky, released in 1979. I'll give a brief summary of the plot. It's rather strange and more thematic than plot-driven. But the idea of the movie is that in an unknown country, suddenly there appears, whether it's from out of space or a completely supernatural event, no one knows, something called the Zone appears. Nothing really lives in the zone. It's kind of this otherworldly place, almost abandoned. But the government of this country blocks people off from visiting. The only way you can go to visit is via someone who's called a stalker. Hey, that's the title. This is easy to follow, right? Anyway, we join up with a stalker who just goes by that title. And joining with him is a professor and a writer. They go by professor and writer. Pretty easy to follow. Anyway, he's taking them to the zone because rumored to be within the zone is a room where the innermost desires of your heart can come true. And so as they go to the zone, it is a long and arduous journey. The stalker seems to have some religious attachment to the zone itself, to its otherworldliness. And as he's guiding them, he goes around in very unique ways. They can see the room where they're supposed to go immediately, but the stalker emphasizes we can't walk straight to the zone. We have to go in these about patterns. There's no going through it twice. And the professor and writer push back on this a lot as they go on, and increasingly as the journey goes. You as the viewer, if you watched it along with us, which probably doubtful, but Isaiah and Ben know, it's a pretty arduous watch because you're being drawn into this really, really difficult journey, seemingly irrational journey to get to this place that only the stalker knows. In the end, it's revealed that the professor wants to go to the room to destroy it, to prevent people from going.
Oh, really?
Who knows what lies within their heart. And the writer, who is kind of going, because he's been going through an existential crisis of meaning, destroyed as well. Yeah, we could talk about that. He wants to destroy it as well, only after the stalker begs them not to destroy the room. They don't. Nobody goes into the room. They end up going back. And we get a very despondent stalker talking with his wife about how no one believes in anything anymore. They think they figured out everything with science and reason, and there's no higher meaning, there's no purpose anymore, really kind of laying explicit some of the allegory of the film. But with that, guys, I just want to ask you, what are your, is it difficult movie, right? The whole point of this section is to be on the challenging side, but what are your thoughts on the movie? Just kind of, you've had a week to reflect on it.
You really kind of understated the hardness of watching this film.
It's difficult.
Because my wife, who's an extremely patient person in my opinion, we were watching the movie and there were moments where they just weren't doing anything. and it was just kind of like you're stuck on one thing. And she literally asked, "Why did you pause it?" And I'm like, "I didn't pause it. They're just chilling here."
And
And
that was a mark of Tarkovsky's work, is those lingering shots, which draw you into the film.
maybe he shouldn't be a movie maker. Maybe he should be a photographer, because those don't move at all. But
dripping sounds in photography.
Okay. Anyway, it was a difficult thing to watch. You said rightly, the movie really is made in the last 20 to 25 minutes, and that's true. But it took me what felt like 3 days to get there. And I don't know if Devin's going to make it on, but Devin watched it about the same time that I did. And we were texting back and forth just kind of as we were watching it. And he watched it at like 1.5 speed. I watched it at full speed. So I don't think that, that's very fair. But so some of the things that he said is, I'm going to kill Josh. He said watching Lighthouse was strike one. This is strike three. Now that
we
was
will not be reviewing Lighthouse on this podcast. Many of you know what that movie is. That was a mistake. Yeah.
He just goes, "I'm gonna watch this as soon as I can so I can start ripping Josh apart and berating him for making us watch it." Let's see here. I can't say that. That has an expletive. I don't know if I can finish this. I hate him for this. I'd rather read a dissertation, to be honest. Let's see here. Yeah, and those are some important key themes that he said, was that he just doesn't like you as much anymore. Now all of that was said early on in the movie, and it had some stuff like thematically that is worth discussing. And Josh, I know that one of the reasons you liked it was because of the underlying Christian sort of themes and even metaphor. And I'll say that actually is kind of cool and kind of interesting. But then there's some other things that made it seem like the Soviet attempt at making Stranger Things, and it just didn't work.
Soviet attempt at making Stranger Things 40 years before Stranger Things.
Yes. Yeah. Oh. And I have a hard time recommending anybody watch it, because one thing that Devin also said is, and I can't even freaking watch it in the background because it's in Russian and I have to read the subtitles.
Yeah, no, that's a sticking point. You gotta keep your eye on the screen. But well, Isaiah, before we get in, I've got some questions for us because I like some of the stuff you brought up, Ben, and I want to kind of interact with that. But Isaiah, what were your thoughts coming off the movie?
I would say that, I mean, we're saying it jokingly, and I would agree. I think, but it's a mark of Tarkovsky's style. But like some of those scenes, literally that don't move but like 10 feet, take 4 minutes, Yep. And so like there are those scenes, and they're hard to watch. I would say I appreciate the movie. I enjoy the twist ending, or like the ambiguous ending, if you will.
Right.
So like I loved the last 30 minutes of it. It was hard to watch, but I can appreciate it, and I understand why it's such a pivotal movie. And then I told you this earlier. I won't spoil any of this in case you're going to ask it, but like I love the story of how the thing ended up coming to be, and the fact that we don't even have 2/3 of, we only have 1/3 of what was actually filmed, essentially, for this movie. And so like I can appreciate I love the story behind the movie. Enjoyed the movie, didn't enjoy watching it just because it's a slow-paced movie. Like as from an entertainment perspective, it's like if you were forced to go back and read that book is really cool and you had some great discussions about, but you're not going to go back and read it. You'll just want to talk about it some more. That's what this movie is. Like I'm excited to talk about it.
It is without a doubt the slowest movie I've ever seen in my life. So This is not hey, let's get the guys together and have a movie night on Friday. Not the movie for that. This is
watching it with other people may have made it better for me, because then I would have been able to rip it apart with other people.
See, I would have been the opposite for me. Like because I would have done that, I don't think I would have been able to pull out any of the things I did appreciate.
Yeah, I think so. I watched it by myself twice.
Oh.
Which talk about
Commitment.
Now, I was I'll say I was a lot where you guys are after the first time I watched it, but over the course of a month, I couldn't stop thinking about some of the themes in it. So Ben, you mentioned some of the underlying Christian imagery. So Tarkovsky was a Christian artist working within the Soviet Union, which you can imagine was very, very difficult, very much like Alexander Solzhenitsyn in that respect. If any of you even know who that is, sadly.
Who doesn't really?
Did you just big league us? With...
No, I'm just saying these are good names to search if you can spell them. I can't, but
okay. Hey, wait before you go any further, Josh. We got Devin's gonna jump in here. Give me 1 second.
Oh yeah, let's get Devin knows we don't have a bleep button for his opinions on the movie, right?
All right, Devin, give us 1 second.
Hey.
Devin, we're live, so be careful.
For sure. Always. What party y'all in?
While that's getting set up, I don't have anything else to share about. Oh, I do have stuff to share about the movie.
Okay, Devin's actually going to be Devin's going to be in your box, Ben. But welcome, Devin.
Everybody, just so you know, Ben did not magically transform into Devin and Devin into Ben. That's not what's happening here. It's just
exactly what happened.
Purposes. This is what we're doing.
Dude, you look like
Devin,
you're having fun.
Exactly what happened. Although, no, I don't want to trade.
Oh, ouch. Okay, Devin. So, I've already shared a little bit, censored, of what you texted me about your thoughts on the movie.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Mainly
Censored.
how much you now despise Josh.
Yes.
And so outside of that, what are your first impressions?
It was, if I had to choose a word, I would choose arduous, because it was a chore. It was a chore to make it through the movie.
Nice word. Nice SAT word.
Yeah, I got, the message of it, but honestly, I think I would have rather read a dissertation. Partially it was because it was in Russian. I had to read the whole time. So I figured if I'm reading, might as well just be reading a dissertation. But it was kind of grueling. That was my impression of it.
Josh had some questions for us. Josh, what were some of the questions you had?
Yeah, so you guys have, and I think rightly described it as arduous. It was grueling. It draws you into the experience, which is one of suffering. But I want to ask you, this is seriously what it is, guys. Like, for those of you who haven't seen it, that's what it's like to watch the movie. But think about like their journey within the zone. I mentioned it in the summary I did earlier, that they can't move around the zone. Like, the logic's not necessarily the same. Places aren't the same. Things don't make sense. I think the writer points out, he goes, there's no triangles here, right? There's no facts here. This isn't like the physical world, the scientific world you think of. And so the zone is a lot, the kind of journey through the zone, I think, is very relevant to the journey of faith. So I'd just like to get y'all's thoughts on that. What do you think that the difficulty and kind of the irrational journey through the zone has to do with faith in God, and particularly someone's faith in God in a time where that's not necessarily favored?
Like, and I accidentally muted Devin. I was trying to get him to unmute. Would you do me a favor? Would you ask that one more time? Hold on. Yeah. Devin, my bad. I muted you. You're gonna need to unmute yourself.
Are we ready?
There we go.
There he goes. Yeah. Okay.
I figured you did it because it was windy. I don't know. I can't tell.
It's fine. I'm just gonna leave you unmuted.
Okay. So the question is, what do you think about the journey through the zone? What do you think the journey through the zone has to say about faith in modern times?
Things can really suck, man. So I'm just gonna put it out there that it's frustrating. You don't know why it's taking as long as it's supposed to. You, in your perspective, can see shorter, easier, more effective ways to go about it. And why is everything trying to kill me? So
I think I would say something along the lines of like, I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to relate this to faith, but I would say something along the lines of like it's oftentimes more about the journey than the thing you were even chasing. Just in that regards, like the fact that they don't go in at the end. And I know that sounds super poetic and stuff like that, but really, like it's the whole point. Like this thing that they're chasing, and there's parts of the movie that talk like they talk about a guy who did make it one time and what actually happened, and you realize like oh, it actually wasn't this wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And so just as far as like the zone though, not the room, I think it's one of those things. I think it relates to faith today in regards to like it being like it oftentimes in our lives, the things that we're wanting or praying for, chasing after, trying to stop, whatever it is, like it's more, you grow more from how you did or didn't get there than actually getting there is I guess how I would try to relate it.
Well, and you mentioned kind of the person who's not in the movie, but they reference is making it to the room before, and things not going so well. Part of the aspect of the room is it not only gives you what your heart desires, but it might reveal to you what your heart desires. And I mean, isn't that a huge barrier for giving your life to God, right?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
life in
can
faith
you
to
go
God
ahead,
because
Josh? Will you go ahead and tell them like who that is and what it is? Like, kind of just
Yeah.
talk about Porcupine.
Yeah, so Porcupine is kind of the nickname they give to the person who trained our Stalker in the movie. And so the one time that he goes into the room to save his brother. He wants to save his brother's life. That's why he's going there. But what's revealed in the room is what he really wants is riches. And so when he comes back, he's given riches, but his brother dies. And he can't cope with the fact that his heart longed more for riches than for his brother's health, and he ends up hanging himself. And so it's very dramatic. Again, nothing really easy about the movie, but I think that says a lot about this is kind of what it's like to pursue faith and God in general. Is like we really have to reconcile with, all right, what do you really want? Because that's going to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be the altruistic thing that you're thinking of. More likely, it's a lot more intense and stressful. But the other thing I wanted to ask, and Devin, we can start with you on this one. Like, what did you think about the kind of irrationality of the zone? If the zone is this journey of faith, what do you think it says about faith that they have to go about in all these ways that don't necessarily make sense, but it just is that way?
Yeah, I mean, I get it with, faith doesn't always make sense. But I don't know, I like to push back on that a little bit because I do think that our faith is very logical and reasonable. And if it wasn't, I probably would have left it a long time ago. But I did I guess in hindsight, I don't even want to admit this. I guess I appreciated the whole, how he described it as if it's a different path for everybody, takes different amounts of time, and ultimately everybody ends up at the same goal, the same destination, but it's a totally different path. But yeah, I mean, I guess it can be totally unpredictable because, I mean, who knows? God takes us on turns that we don't expect. And I liked what Ben said, that we can always see a better way through, I guess, from our perspective. At least we think we can. And we're like, God, if you would just let me go this way, I think this would work out a lot better. And That's just not how it works. So,
yeah. Well, and that's part of it. The zone kind of shows us that the journey of faith it's a perilous one. It's not something that you approach lightly. But I'd like to ask Ben and Isaiah, do you agree more with Devin in that you think our faith is more rational and logical than Stalker portrays? Or do you think that Stalker and the journey through the zone, and irrational is kind of a really negative word, but I don't know how to describe it, the eccentric way of going through faith, I guess. Which do you think is more, do you agree more with Devin or the movie on how our faith is?
Okay, so if we're trying to say that the zone has a different logic versus it is completely illogical, then that's two different things. So like if we were to say that God has a different logic, or God's perspective changes the reason why he does things, or that from his angle it makes more sense and it's chaotic from our angle, or that there is a reason for this, why it's this way, then I get that. The movie doesn't seem to communicate that. It doesn't seem to communicate a purpose behind the weird angles, and it doesn't seem to point to a specific purpose as to why logic's different. It just simply is nonsensical, and it's different every time. It doesn't say a purpose behind that per se. And so if it were to say that like the zone causes you to go in a weird way for a reason, then that would be different than say it just does cause you to go in a weird way and you have to deal with that. And so I would argue, like, was this in Isaiah? It says that his ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So there's the idea that God does things for a reason that we do not, at least not yet, comprehend. That I can get behind. And so if that's what is trying to be communicated, that makes more sense. But if it's trying to just communicate that God doesn't make sense, deal with it, I wouldn't necessarily go with that. There's an analogy. Oh, C.S. Lewis. Ha ha ha. All right. So that he draws about how some people would look at God as vaporous, like you can't grab on to a vapor, like it just kind of goes through your hands and stuff like that. And so it's hard to make sense of that. But he argues a different angle, and he says, well, rather than it being our solid hand trying to grasp this not so solid idea, that maybe God is the more solid thing and we are the vapor in comparison. And so that we are the thing that's less solid and doesn't make as much sense. And in an interaction with him, it seems weird to us, but he's actually just more solid and more concrete than we could hope to be. And so I would kind of go at it from that angle. So I agree with Devin that if Stalker were trying to communicate that just faith doesn't make sense, period, like never would, not even from God's angle, period, then I wouldn't vibe with that. But if it's more like it doesn't make sense from our perspective right now, but there is a purpose, then that seems like something more and alike what Christianity says, in my opinion.
Well, and I'll comment two things on that, because I think that you put it well. And I think maybe rather than calling the zone irrational or faith irrational, maybe that the zone, moving in the zone, is not scientific. Whereas if you were to go and do physics in the world, like the professor is a physicist, there are very things you can grab and measure. But when you work in the zone, that's not how it is. And I would say that is very indicative of faith, because you can't just approach something, touch it, look at it, measure it, and see and explain it in that way. It's very, very different. And I think part of the reason that there's no reason given to the zone, there is no, our ways are higher than your ways. However, I think that's part of just kind of hiding behind the metaphor of the zone itself, that there's no God in this movie, but clearly this movie is about God. So it's not an explicit recognition. But I do see the truth in it. If you add like that Isaiah passage, Ben, and kind of look at faith that way, that kind of strikes true to me, is kind of how faith is. But Isaiah, what are your thoughts?
I guess the way I would probably just reword what Ben said was more like, I think what you see through the zone is, I think it's the reality that faith is often just more than maybe the different corners we peg ourselves into, right? So for the person that's, so you take like the stalker, who what I would say is probably driven more by emotions and stuff like that. Like, you see his gap being the logic, and then you see like the professor, right, and his gap being maybe some of the like willing to understand that part of it is just not going to be known fully. And so I think it's just the zone is a picture of the fact that like faith is more often than just what we can maybe grasp or where we tend to lean towards. I think the thing that you see in each of them, because you talked about the absence of an obvious God in the movie, which is true. You see almost each of them try to play that role, right, which is indicative of humanity too, trying to be more than we are. Like in that scene where all three of them are arguing when he pulls the bomb out, like the writer yells at the stalker and he's like, no,
the bomb to destroy the room.
Yeah, to destroy the room. And he looks at him and he's just like, I see right through you. You're trying to play God. You're nobody. And because you prey on the emotions of people that need you, you're trying to be God. And then you can also.
He was right in that assumption about the stalker.
What's that?
You think the professor was right about the stalker?
I would say my initial thought would be no. I think you saw a hurt man that really just wanted to be more than he knows he was. He wants to be more in society. So like maybe, you know, like but not just like I don't think there was a direct intent. Like, you know what? I want to be someone who rules over people, that they have to rely on me and I hold their lives in my hands. I think you see the fight in that, right? Of trying to just have control over aspects of your life that oftentimes you just don't.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of saw the Stalker as a genuine person who was trying, because his whole thing is, I want this, you know, the room is for people who have lost all hope. And I think the kind of implicit assumption to that is that it's for everyone. And he wants to bring people to the zone, into the room, to show them that, but he's absolutely devastated by the fact that people would rather have nothing higher to believe in. They would rather stay down in their grounded view of the world and view of themselves. Because at the end of the movie, when he returns, you know, he goes back to his wife and he's shaking, he's weeping, he's devastated that, you know, no one believes, he's in utter despair. And so my thoughts on the movie, just to kind of give us a closing thing. I know we have other things to talk about, but I think it's just a really good picture of, hey, look, faith in God is not something that is easy. It's not something that you can just look and say, oh, of course, all of this makes sense. I can explain my whole life this way. It's not. If you watch Stalker, again, I know a lot of the stuff we're saying about this is it's arduous and it's difficult, but what it will get you to do is feel the things that I promise you will feel in life if you're following God. That's why I think this is a really great movie for Christians, particularly Christian ministers, because you have a world full of professors and writers, you know, who they really don't want any of this at all. And you're going to be tempted to be that way as well. And you're going to look at things and say, man, does this really all make sense? But I think in the end, Stalker, and I guess we don't really have a ton of time to get into that ending, but I think the end kind of signifies, there is.
You find out that his daughter is actually 11 from Stranger Things.
Yes. Yeah. So at the end, the daughter of the Stalker seems to have telekinetic capabilities, where she just very, very slowly, Tarkovsky style, pushes cups off of a table. And that's how the movie ends. It's very strange. But it's hinted at the beginning. To me, it's recognized at the beginning as they call it a zone victim, is what they call her. But I think that that's kind of just a little bit of a signifier to say there is something higher. The Stalker's mission is worthy. And that can be evidenced by this inexplicable thing. I'm not sure on that, just to be real, but I mean,
it was also Russia, so I don't know. It seemed a little like Chernobyl-y, you know, with like the children of the zone being
well before Chernobyl ever happened.
It was the next decade that happened.
Yeah, but there were rumors that they were testing nuclear technology out there decades before. So,
anyway.
Not just rumors. I mean, they had nuclear weapons, so
yeah, exactly.
definitely.
So there were testing facilities and all that stuff.
But
that's how I took it anyway. I would like to clarify real quick though that
that Stalker. Oh yeah.
I would like to clarify, like, I'm talking about faith. I think there's a difference in like my personal faith and journey, which can seem to not make sense at time and seem irrational in the things that God, you feel like God leads you to do. But I mean, in a sense of having a rational faith, I mean it in the sense of like, I do believe it's rational to believe in Jesus based on just, the resurrection evidence and stuff like that. So that's what I was getting at with rationality there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that my interpretation of the zone's journey is not that it's really irrational, but from our perspective is inexplicable, which again, Christian watching this, as you go on your journey of faith in life, a lot of things, if they haven't come about already, a lot of things will seem completely inexplicable, but that doesn't mean that God isn't orchestrating things in a higher way that we don't understand. But with that, we can move on to something else. That's the movie Stalker. In a few weeks, I'll have another movie for us all to watch. I promised the guys that it will either be a movie that's more fun or a movie in English. So maybe a little more accessible, but definitely, Ben is.
Before I go, do you guys want to see my dog's life jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm walking out. My wife's got my dog out there right now.
Hold on. Let me see if I can. One second.
Walking out to him.
Yes.
Can y'all see her?
Yeah, barely.
The only thing I want in life right
She's
now
got a shark
is
fin.
a shark fin life jacket.
That's
Yep.
all right,
The only
man.
thing I want
Yep.
right now.
Well, you have fun, dude.
All right, well,
Mysteriously
I'm gonna
just
enjoy the rest of my vacation. So, see you
Okay,
All
guys.
right,
bye-bye.
bye.
See you, Dev.
All right,
I almost just hung up,
1 second.
just like because it felt like instinctive. Can they still hear us right now, even though
They
this is a
can.
thing?
Yes, they can.
Oh, great.
That's not an awkward thing to say. Yeah.
Do, do,
Let us know in the
do.
comments what you think about our Be Right Back slide. Is that how to engage right now? I don't know.
Oh, do your
Also, do
Talk?
we feel like Devin is actually lame?
By the way, if anybody wants to sponsor us, these are the moments that we can put in a little ad read for you. You know, maybe get your logo on the screen, and
If
I
there
don't
were
know. I
one,
feel like I have a good ad reading voice.
if there were one company that you would want to sponsor us, Josh, what would it be? That you could like reap benefits from because they sponsored.
I have no idea.
Audible.
Oh, that would be a good one. Yeah,
Oh, hold on.
Audible or Kindle.
or just Starbucks.
I mean, I'm not a huge Starbucks guy.
You're a
No.
huge coffee guy.
Yeah, which is why I'm not a huge Starbucks guy.
Ooh, he said it.
Yeah,
He
coffee
said
hot
it.
takes. Can't find them anywhere else but here. You know.
He said
Not
it
as
and
good.
he meant it.
I did. Yeah, I'm not.
Well,
I don't think it's disgusting. I just, it's not the best.
more
It's expensive.
Caribou coffee.
What?
Caribou.
Oh, my mom has like Keurig cups of that, so I don't really know what that tastes like.
Made of real caribou.
Well, so let's
Oh.
see here. Okay, so we talked about Stalker. Josh, Rebecca wants to know if you've been to Oak Cliff Coffee in Dallas.
I haven't. Isn't that just a roaster?
I don't think so, but let's see here. So we talked about the movie Stalker, which, by the way, dude, I really did like that movie, and I think, for what it's worth, the ending I think actually has a lot of different ways you can take it that are pretty sweet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There are other non-faith metaphor things that I would discuss on another date, like does time work differently in it because we see the dead bodies and the dog, and is that the actual stalker's dead
Oh, yeah.
body? He actually sees his own death, things like this. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So anybody watching, know what you're getting into, but I really recommend that you watch it and then take it from a perspective of kind of what does the faith journey mean and what does that feel like. But anyway,
Good
what
stuff.
do we have next, Isaiah?
So we're going to talk a little bit, and this is the first week back to school, and so there's been a lot going on. We touched on this a little bit last week, and just again, like, man, understanding that everything going on with specifically just school. Like, I'm not talking about businesses, jobs, and stuff like that, but like this being the fall, where school starts, and because of COVID and it still being a thing that the country's dealing with, it was a very unique week. I'm curious to know what y'all's experiences were with school. Some of us here are youth pastors, like what, maybe even just from your students. Like, what was it like for y'all? What did some of the things y'all noticed that caught your eye this week?
Ben, you're a youth pastor. You go first.
I am. That's true. Well, I said a lot of last week. Not a whole lot is personally different in our neck of the woods because it's all online right now where we are.
Oh, really?
So it's all online until September 8th.
Oh, okay, that's right. They did the
And that's
6-week
for
thing.
most DAW, from what I understand. And so, when September 8th rolls around, that's when we'll start seeing things. But really, my eyes are set on the end of September, like seeing what happens then, because my suspicion is that we'll see another spike. That with the number of kids going back to school, and I don't even think it's going to be a spike where like a bunch of kids are getting sick. I think you might see that. I think it's a spike of a bunch of families getting sick because the kids brought it home and didn't know. And by the time that the school finds out that someone tested positive for COVID, it's already in the family and it's already a birthday party.
Did you see that study that came from Alfred Cook's Children's, though?
That said,
No.
That that children aren't necessarily like children are passing it between each other really well, but that it's not getting passed to adults.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like that from the kid to the adult, it's not. Yeah, they came out. It was earlier. This is Friday, so earlier this week, Cook's Children came out with a study just so, that the transmission rate from child to parent doesn't seem to be very high. So, but
Well, and that's good to hear in some respects, but I still think that regardless, you're putting kids out more into an exposed environment where it's on something on their clothing. It's something that a parent, a mom, a
Well,
dad
it doesn't really transfer that much from surface contact, right? That's kind of it's
Not much.
mostly.
But either way, like it's coming home. Like they say that like on certain when it comes to
But not transmitting, which is kind of the whole point of the study.
well when it comes to like surface things, it's like certain things can't live on a like it can't live on an inanimate surface for like a week. Like so if you leave something alone long enough, it won't be a problem anymore. But I mean, I've already been seeing like some colleges are starting to see um problems. Like I think it was a like UNC, North
North
Carolina.
Carolina and
Chapel Hill.
Notre Dame had
Yeah.
some outbreaks.
Yes.
Michigan State,
Yeah. And
Notre
some
Dame.
places are, yeah, they're already like ending classes again and going back to just purely online.
I have a question
And
about that. How did they get their testing back so fast? Because
Well-
everybody I talked to has to wait around forever, and they've only been at school for a week.
So I saw like I ended up in a comment conversation back and forth with someone about this that was like, I think it was specifically at Michigan or UNC or something like that, and they were like, this is all bogus because like how could they have gotten the test back earlier to even move in on T week or transfer week and stuff like that. Like the students had to be tested before, so the testing begun before the first week of school.
So those weren't cases that developed once on campus. That was just.
Well, no, because they had been there before that. Like students are on campus before school starts and stuff like that. So like
I thought you said they couldn't go on campus until they had test results.
we can go to class, I think is what he meant.
Oh,
anyway, so like testing was done before the first day of school is what I'm saying. Like as far as like all this stuff. So, but that's how
that makes more sense.
Testing was done before the first day of school is essentially like how these results were even able to come in.
So question then, because I thought like at first it was just like they had 150 cases at Notre Dame or whatever within the first week, like there's an outbreak. But if you have, what does Notre Dame have, like 20,000 students, something like that? I know it's a private school, but it's not small. I mean, it didn't develop from the school. I'm not saying there won't be a spike, but like what do we actually learn there?
I think what we've actually learned is that maybe whenever it comes to back in session, as soon as they find out that teachers or any number of students have it, even if it didn't come from the school, that their knee-jerk reaction is going to be go back home. And they're going to wait for a couple weeks and then they're going to come back and then they're going to realize, oh, either new kids, like either it's spread from that first couple weeks that you were actually in school, or just like with before during the summer, people were still going around doing things and catching it different ways. So so from my perspective as a student pastor, we were meeting in a smaller room. Now we're meeting in a bigger room just for elbow room, really, and to space out more, putting more of a hard line on wearing masks, and trying to enforce that. And we're even gonna make masks just to show some sort of solidarity with that. But the problem is that even though one group may take as many precautions as they can, that if there is one place that these kids are going where precautions aren't being taken or not strongly enough, or they're becoming relaxed, that's whenever it's going to all open up again. And so things are going to go well. Either things are going to go bad right at the beginning of school, or things are going to go well for a while. People are going to become relaxed, and that's going to just be a repeat of what happened over the summer for us, that it spiked again, and then we had to come back together and become more strict again. I don't know about if it's going to cause another shutdown. I think that Texas is sort of
I think the
tolerant
on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that Texas will do everything in its power to prevent having another shutdown. I do. And then even if Texas did it, that's not to say that any bordering states would as well. And so I feel like if there's not a collective movement made by all states at the same time, that it's not necessarily going to improve a whole lot. But then again, like you also have California, who originally was like supposed to be the model of a shutdown.
They've had it as bad as anybody.
Which is still suffering incredibly. And so, and then asking the question, why is that still the case? So.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see.
2020, right?
What's that?
2020, am I right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think
It's so hard to talk about this if it extends into 2021.
Well, it's. I mean, my thing would be like, first off, as far as like what we're talking about here, just being back to school week 1, like from what I can see, man, teachers, the online experience I've seen it both from like elementary kids, you know, and up. Man, everyone's doing their best, and on that to be said, like teachers are trying their hardest. There seem to be varying degrees of success depending on like where the teacher's doing it. You can tell like ones that were, you know, had the foundation laid, but man, just like I kept seeing just post after post from teacher friends and like parents about their kids, like, oh well, that didn't work out, you know. But everybody seems to be flexing really well. I think everybody's in this understanding that like, hey, we're all in this together. And so in the district,
except for Dallas teachers, but you know,
whatever. But the do what?
I said except. I mean, Dallas teachers are real pushing back on doing anything in person at all, which has been very different from any teacher I know.
No, I'm talking about on the online, like the online experience. Like that has been a hard thing to navigate for a lot of people. And I think when it comes to the online thing, that I mean, just watching kids pick up their iPads, get in, watching teachers do the best they can, like that's been really cool to see, regardless what happens with COVID. Because I think to Ben's point, like it just depends on, you know, what we do and don't do, how serious are we going to take it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be an issue. My fear is when like flu season comes around. Like you're not going to be able to know who has COVID or just you know, or the flu. Yeah. And so like we're almost
everybody starts coughing and getting a fever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, with I forget what it is, like, but what weed it is that's really heavy right now, ragweed, I think. You know, and so it's just going to be really hard to navigate that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Oh yeah.
You guys have any other thoughts on COVID and school and all that?
Just for everyone watching, wash your hands, wear a mask, don't be selfish. So that's all I got.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's pull out that wheel of random and see what we got for us today. Ben, do you still have the wheel?
It's right here.
Let me make sure because Devin wasn't. Okay, boom. Aha.
Little glary, so you might have to. What are some options on the wheel? Because we can't.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Joshua. All right, so we've got.
Oh, is that like a Graham Norton voice? Is that kind of the feel we got?
Sure. We've got movies and shows that need a remake or a reboot. We have musicians that we desperately hope have a comeback. Celebs we'd actually vote for. 90s Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. The best bad franchises. And underrated sports that we wish were more popular in the United States.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, give it a spin.
Y'all, wasn't it? Sports.
Give it a spin, and we'll see where we land. We got a good amount of time left.
Okay. Just gonna.
The flicker is really a satisfying sound. I enjoy.
It's made out of an index card. All right, we got red. Nope. Yep, red. So that is 90s Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. I was really hoping that we were going to get this one.
90s Nickelodeon.
So it's 90s to 2000s because as I was brought to my attention by someone the other day, is he argued that I am not a 90s kid. I'm a 2000s kid.
That's kind of where I am. Yeah.
And so, well, I was born in 1990, so I felt like the decade began when I did.
Well, so name a couple of Nickelodeon shows, and I'll tell you because I think that's
gonna. Let's pulled up right now.
Okay, well then never mind.
The
You're
best
gonna-
SpongeBob episodes are from the 90s. Very
Oh,
end.
that's
They're
probably
there.
true. Okay,
Okay,
so do you want Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network first?
Well, I was just trying to help you figure out because like depending on what shows you considered '90s Nickelodeon, you might have found yourself to really be a 2000s kid.
Well, okay, so that's why I'm extending it to 2000s because to his defense, there are some 2000s, early 2000s programs. I'm like, yeah, that's my childhood still.
Okay, all right.
And so with Nickelodeon, here's just a sample going up to into the 2000s. Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Rocco's Modern Life, Ah Real Monsters, Hey Arnold, Kablam, Angry Beavers, Cat Dog, Wild Thornberries, Rocket Power, As Told by Ginger, which was just, we're not even going to go there. Invader Zim, Fairly Odd Parents, Chalk Zone, and Jimmy Neutron. All right, let me just.
What a lineup.
What a lineup. Okay.
What a lineup.
Now, Cartoon Networks is not as extensive. Like, there aren't as many just cartoons that they had, like, right here, but the names still show up. So you've got Space Ghost, Dexter's
Ghost
Lab,
Coast to
Johnny
Coast.
Bravo. Huh?
I was just saying
Space
Space Ghost
Ghost
Coast to Coast.
Johnny Bravo has not aged well.
Oh, no, absolutely. Johnny Bravo would be Me Too'd in a heartbeat.
Ooh.
Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel, Powderpuff Girls, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Mike, Lou, and Og, Courage the Coward, Sheep in the Big City, Time Squad, Samurai Jack, Grim and Evil, and Kids Next Door. And then Grim and Evil became the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. So you got some stuff to discuss there. Do we believe that it is a network by network kind of like, okay, you can just say this network blanketly, or is it certain shows like are really supreme in this?
Yeah.
Like,
You could do it a few ways. I think Nickelodeon has a better lineup in general, but then there are like clumps of shows like Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel, and Cartoon Network side, and then Ren and Stimpy on the Nickelodeon side. Those are some of the most disturbing for children products ever made, especially Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy is, I mean, anybody go watch 10 minutes of an episode on YouTube or something, and it is highly disturbing. But also kind of like fringe entertaining as a kid because you feel like you're not supposed to be watching it. Did you guys watch Ren and Stimpy growing up?
Yeah. And not growing up. I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up.
I'm not surprised. That one, like, you don't even have to be that strict of a parent to not let your kids watch Ren and Stimpy. Yeah. That show was messed up.
Yeah. But as a teenager, it was hilarious.
Hilarious.
But I probably would have like put it in the category of like Beavis and Butthead. Like, this is like,
like Beavis and Butthead though.
Huh?
The physical animations were really gross.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just talking about in adult themes.
Oh yeah.
That
was not humor for children.
Not humor for children. But that might have been why it actually went as long as it did, because this is just teenagers and inattentive parents just kind of like let that thing go on for a while.
A good course correction on that, though, I think was Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, which kind of pushed that way. But that was what I thought the funniest show was when I was a child. I haven't watched any as an adult. But did you guys ever watch Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy?
I did.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of
it was actually really funny at times. And
I really enjoyed it.
And dark. Very macabre.
Oh, very dark. Yeah.
So what are y'all's answers then? Like if you have to pick one.
Well, you haven't said diddly, Isaiah.
Yeah.
You guys said plenty, so no, just kidding.
Do any of those shows stick out to you? Like I could watch that right now.
No. I think there were a number of cartoons that that you missed.
I need to add something to that equation for you, Isaiah, for Cartoon Network, and that's Toonami, which basically it helped introduce me to like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, like when I was a kid, and that was the only place that I could really find it. So there are some other things that were on Cartoon Network that weren't even original programming, but they got cartoons from other places and put it there for enjoyment. And so and I feel like that would resonate with you.
Well,
maybe.
yeah. So that so Toonami, like there were a lot of Cartoon Network. I think thing that we forget is that they were the hub for a lot of shows that came and went from other networks, specifically in those years. So you had like Batman Beyond was on there. You had Scooby Doo that was on there.
Kids WB stuff.
Yeah, and so like you had, and these were in those years, all the Toonami stuff. I think the Cartoon Network shows I would enjoy more today than I would the Nickelodeon shows. Though I think that lineup was like stellar that you listed. I think as a whole, if I were to go back through all of those shows, I would much rather watch the ones that were on Cartoon Network today than actually go back and watch episodes of whatever it was. Like I'd watch the Powerpuff Girls before I go back and watch episodes of what was the first one you named? Nickelodeon.
Doug or Rugrats?
Doug, yeah. Like Doug was cool and it had one of the best intro songs. That little whistle and the line, like the pencil line that would come across and do all that stuff. But like, I don't know. I would say that Cartoon Network's got better lasting shows. We're still
Isaiah
watching
actually
Dragon
watches
Ball.
a lot of Powder Puff Girls to this
Yeah.
day. He owns them all on Blu-ray, so that's true. He's not just exaggerating.
Powerpuff, not Powder Puff.
Whatever.
Incidentally,
You would know.
I did not mention SpongeBob on there just because as I was looking at the list, because SpongeBob is still considered current programming, and I was looking at original programming by like older.
Yeah.
And so
well, and so just to toss this out there too, is that Cartoon Network
like
also had Justice League, it had Teen Titans, it had X-Men, it had Yu-Gi-Oh at one point. I'm pulling these up.
Yu-Gi-Oh was like the biggest nerd group in school.
So I never got into it. I had a standard.
Which, if you played Yu-Gi-Oh cards, more power to you. Okay, I'm reflecting my views as a child. All right, not necessarily what I hold today, but not terribly far off.
So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, dude. You know what stands up today and is still even scary? Courage the Cowardly Dog.
I didn't like it.
Oh, dude, I watched. Terrifying.
I watched. There's a lot that's terrifying about it. There's one that someone posted the other day in regards to 2020. It's like someone needs to return that slab. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, you remember the return the slab? And it was just like this like ghostly image.
The Egypt, yes, dude, that one was.
Yes,
that one was.
Yeah, it had like plagues on it. But no, there are a few shows on here that stick out as absolutely terrible. That I think that the people who like these to this day, or even liked them back then, are just tasteless. And some of them are Courage the Cowardly Dog, for example. Let me just go with Cartoon Networks, okay?
That's terrible.
Yeah, well, I just spin the wheel again. No, I'm just kidding.
And Johnny Bravo, probably wouldn't be any good. And then in Nickelodeon's got quite a few where I'm like, that was not even a good show. Hey Arnold was never fun for me.
Oh, that was amazing.
Hey Arnold's awesome, man.
Hey Arnold was one of their top 5s for sure.
Oh yeah,
but it shouldn't be.
You got something against people with odd shaped heads?
Yeah.
Well, I'm friends with you, man. So like, I'm sorry. I had to. Oh, there I go.
Get out.
Yeah. But I think as I look at it though, for a network that had more like major wins, I'm gonna go with Nickelodeon because of like I loved Rocket Power as a kid. I thought that was cool. I'm like, I want to be that kid, even though I can't. Jimmy Neutron. I watched the Jimmy Neutron movie a few weeks ago because it was on like Netflix. It was still hilarious. The graphics and the animation. Huh?
Just watch the Jimmy Neutron movie.
I saw it. I'm like, I gotta put this on in the background, and then I was like, oh my gosh, they got the. Patrick Stewart's an evil alien overlord.
Is he really?
I'm like, well, here we go.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
that shouldn't make the show better.
It did. Cat Dog.
Cat Dog was Cat Dog is criminally underrated, I think. That never got the respect it should have.
I loved the reoccurring bit about how you just didn't know how they peed, and people were like, how do they do it? And there's like one episode
Great kid humor.
where they like walk out of a bathroom and just they and it's not even really just, but someone's like, oh, that's how you do it, and then like they don't even show it to you, but they're like, yeah, it's there. But I thought Cat Dog was good, and then SpongeBob is one of the most quotable things ever. But like you said, it has to be early SpongeBob.
Yeah. But early SpongeBob is like, I don't need it, right? That's the early one.
Yes. But I found out that that's because leading up to the movie, that was supposed to be the original run of SpongeBob, and then it was supposed to be done. Like the maker was just like, we had only planned out to that, and that was all that they had. And then after that, other creative minds jumped in, and that's whenever the quality just went. But it's still so. It's Nickelodeon's Mickey Mouse basically. Like it's, which by the way, I don't even think I'm even putting Disney cartoons in like Disney Channel originals. I'm not even gonna put that list here.
I don't even remember any.
Oh yeah,
that I was
that's a different conversation.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of Rocko's Modern Life? Did y'all ever watch that?
Catchy intro.
Yeah.
Also too adult.
Yes. No, that one was also very much like Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I liked that as a kid.
Yeah. I didn't really grow up on. I didn't remember that one much as a kid. And then I just saw like on a list of adult jokes that no one got at the time, like Rocko's Modern Life showed up a few times. I'm like, oh
dude, there was some there were some jokes in that are hard to believe got past the censors.
Shall I spin again?
Yeah, go ahead. I think we got time for one more.
Okay, one more. Up. Well, I don't know why I was upping. Please not again. Okay. 90s Nick versus Cartoon Network again. We're just gonna do a very light spin now.
Is this thing loaded?
No. We've got comeback needed. Some musicians and/or bands that we think desperately need to come back. And I already have mine.
What's yours?
Lauryn Hill.
She's still doing stuff.
Yeah.
But like not in like where I'm like she's like the like just completely back like where everyone's just like, oh my gosh, have you heard the new Lauryn Hill? Like, and it's just as prominent. Like you'd have to be like looking for it. But I'm saying like needs to have a comeback. I mean, like, wow, I can't believe that they're like on the top 10 right now. Like I haven't heard them in forever. That's what I mean.
All I can think of is Mumford & Sons needs to go back to their folk roots. Ever since they departed,
Okay, so you think they got too like what, pop or alternative-y?
Yeah, too pop, alternative, rocky. They just kind of blend into everything now. The only way you can identify their music is Marcus Mumford's voice, and they were like at the front of the folk wave that came in. So that's kind of my.
For what it's worth, Lauryn Hill is currently touring around the world.
Yes. Okay.
Probably
but
Mumford
I'm like,
too. Wait, like, she's so inconsiderate as to tour during COVID.
What's that?
Is she touring during COVID? Does she even care about people?
Whatever. I don't know. I don't know what these shows look like. All I'm saying is that
the last time like I saw like Lauryn Hill, like, and people were like talking about her a lot, and like she was close to her popularity before, was a while back. She was on Fallon, and she did a cover of, what was it, Feeling Good, and she nailed it. I was like, good night. And so that was the first time we'd heard anything from her in a while, but I haven't like seen her as like prominently as we had back in like the 2000s. And
fair enough. Okay. I mean, so I would say I would go based off of the criteria that like they aren't making music and we would love them to again.
Okay.
But
well, I don't know, because there are some people who are like still making music, but they're not like iconic things that they're putting out. It's just like, oh, you liked them back then? Well, they're still doing stuff. Like U2. Remember when U2 dropped an album for free on everyone's phone and nobody wanted it? Like it's like that. Like, sure, they might be making stuff, but they probably shouldn't be. Or they need to make something different.
Yeah.
So Lauren Hill's got my vote for right now.
Isaiah, what's yours?
I would probably say something like, scroll through my iTunes library that doesn't get used ever. Like I would love to see something like from No Doubt or whatever. Like No Doubt making a comeback, you know.
Them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Gwen
I know who
Stefani.
they are.
Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
don't
the
know.
band.
You don't know No Doubt. Well,
I don't.
I'm
know
gonna-
who that is. I'm not the
I'm
biggest
gonna-
music guy.
well, I'm not. I'm gonna say this. You're not missing anything.
Whoa,
Ooh.
not
Yeah.
true.
Uh-huh.
So there's two that I have as I was looking through here that like currently are not making music. These both kind of live in that like they're doing things, but it's not in the music world. I would love to see No Doubt come back and make some music, and then Outkast.
Okay. Oh, we got an amen from Anna. What was funny is as I was looking at the lineup of old cartoons, I saw something that I didn't remember at all, and it was called Class of 3000. And I
I
clicked
remember
on
when
it.
that came out.
Do you remember
I
what
know.
it is?
Yeah, I never watched it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
It
Mr.
follows
3000?
follows a music teacher named Sonny Bridges, voiced by Andre 3000.
Or Andre 3000, yeah.
Yeah. And so apparently, so he made a cartoon that had 2 seasons, and I'm like, I don't remember much of that.
If you make
at
it if you
all.
make it big, you can buy 2 seasons of a cartoon.
That's right.
Daniel Tosh had 2 seasons of Brickleberry or whatever it was, or
Had a cartoon?
he had some cartoon. I forget what the name was on Comedy Central, and it did not go well.
Yeah. Like a lot of Comedy Central original programming. Hey guys, I actually I have to go back and help my mom move her business. For those of you who are watching, that's why I'm dressed all grunge, because that's where I just came from. So I gotta head
Okay.
out. So
Well, we shall
sorry
call
to
it-
hard wrap this, but
That's all right.
Okay, well then
Still
you
got
have
next-
to, since you ruined the momentum, you have to do the sign off.
all right. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in next week. Next week we'll be back at 12 p.m. So let us know what you think in the comments. Anything you want us to talk about, go ahead and comment that. Whether we will or not, I don't know. But until next week, see you guys.